This episode of Q Point Podcast is pre-recorded, produced and sponsored by Karina Quirk, broker at Next Home Experience.
Different views.
I know your story.
From different Q's.
Incredible job.
He's David Quirk.
You brought it up.
And she's Karina Quirk.
Imagine.
This is
Q Point.
Thank you for joining us for part 2 with Republican gubernatorial candidate Owen McCarthy.
I'm sure you heard about now we have 400,000 or 1/3, I guess, roughly, of Mainers now on Maine care. Are you concerned that we might get up to 50 or 60% here in the next couple of years?
When I'm governor, we will not be at 50% on Maine care, but healthcare in the state of Maine and access and cost to healthcare is one of the major issues that we have. I've built a company in healthcare, as I mentioned before, that actually has taken something out of an institution and brings it to someone's home and gives people access to no matter where they are. And why that's important as part of the answer to this question is we've got to reimagine how we deliver healthcare in this state. We don't have access. If you want a primary care doc, you don't have access in some parts of the state. When you dial 911, the ambulance doesn't show up. And that's a major problem. And that hits the cost of healthcare. And I'll get to the Maine care angle in a second. But because then people just go to the emergency room for everything. And that's the most expensive form of healthcare. And once you do that, you continue to raise the cost over and over and over again. So for healthcare in Maine, we first need to solve the access problem. So we need to imagine new ways like telemedicine and telehealth to do low acuity things. We need to strengthen the EMS so when you call 911, they show up. We then need to think about the payer mix. And this is where the 400,000 on Maine care, in addition to be a spending issue for the state, is a problem for our hospitals because Maine care, which drafts off Medicare, which is another big chunk of the population, pays less than it costs to deliver the services. So the hospital and all of those people, say it's 70 cents on the dollar, are underwater. And then they go to the commercial insurers and your business owners, right? They go to the commercial insurers. The hospitals negotiate with them to try to make up their budget difference in their hospital budgets. And then they pass it on to the people that are employing people. And then everyone's like, well, why are the premiums going up every year? It's all interrelated in healthcare. So over time, we need to make sure we don't continue to grow the pie of Maine care because it's just going to make it worse and make it more unaffordable for anyone that wants to have a commercial plan in the state. Some of the ways to do that are to imagine new payment models like block grants for people. And I hear a lot from people about the benefits cliff. You work to a certain amount of time and then you lose your benefits. Well, let's make that cliff more of a slide so people can slide off of it over time. So people that want to work more, we can get them off and get them there. Some of the changes coming from the federal bill will help out with this as well. It's a complex system, healthcare is, but you can have high access to care, low cost, and high quality. And I refuse to believe that you can't have all three of those things.
You are listening to Q Point Podcast. I'm Karina Quirk, co-hosting with my husband, David Quirk, and we are having a conversation with Republican gubernatorial candidate Owen McCarthy. What is your economic plan?
By any measure, Maine is not doing great on economic development. Our wages are flat, new job growths are fairly low, and costs are rising. But I see tremendous potential here if we capture it. There's some things happening out in the world. The reindustrialization of America is one of the things that's happening, and we're bringing suppliers back, and the fourth industrial revolution with artificial intelligence. So for Maine to capture this, we need to block and tackle and do the basics, and then we need to do things that build around our strategy. So on the basics, and these are things that I think anyone would say, but I talked to Haley Ward about the ability to get a DEP permit if someone wants to build a manufacturing plant, and people call them and they say, how long is it going to take? And they say, well, it's an unknown amount of time. And how is anyone going to invest any money into an unknown amount of time? We need to shorten and give firm timelines. We need to go after energy, which we've talked about. We need to make it easier to do business here. We need to get out of the lobster fisherman's way when they want to go fish. So those are the basics. As we think about a strategy where we can grow, we are a small state, but we have some places we have a competitive advantage. I've been building a plan and a vision in some areas where I think we can create a lot of jobs. One of them is maritime innovation. And when I say maritime innovation, I'm thinking first about boat building and boat building capacity because the biggest national security concern in the United States right now is boat building capacity. If we ever get in a conflict with China in the South China Sea, they make 50% of the world's boats. The U.S. makes 3%. There's going to be a major investment in this area in the United States. And that's more than just Bath Iron Works and Portsmouth Naval Shipyard, which technically is in Maine. It's small vessels, it's autonomous drones, etc. So We need to make sure that we capture that and we get that investment. So we need to make sure we have a maritime opportunity zone, which I know we're working on. We need to make sure that we have the infrastructure needed and the ports that the people can come in and build on. We need to make sure that we have the workforce there. We need to make sure our business development team knows that area really well. And this is a complicated area because it's sales to the government, but then it's commercial use on the other side. So you need people that are really talented at that to go get the money and bring it in. We need to make sure that we have early stage research there at our universities and other places so we can be known as a leader. And we should win 1, 2, 3, 4,000 jobs in this area alone because we have the fourth largest coastline in the United States. If you stretch it out, we don't get hit by hurricanes. With the Arctic melting, we're closer to Asia than Los Angeles is. If we don't win in this area, we failed. So we got to put a focus there. We got to put a focus on advanced forest products. Finland has done a great job at this. They have moved beyond paper and built a diverse forest economy with cross-laminated timber and nanocellulose and other things like that. We have a few strong paper companies left, and we need to keep them and build around them and survive from them. Other than that, we need to reinvent our heritage and history there. We have the forest. We actually have the people, the executives of many of the major forest products companies are Mainers. They're from Maine and they care about the place. We have old mill sites to build around, the places that we want to build from. We need to make sure that across the stack, we have the business development team that knows it really well. We have the early stage research that is not just research for research sake, it's for applied. We need to make sure that we are competitive. This has come back to the basics on energy because there's been molded fiber plants that didn't even look at Maine as an option because of our energy costs. So we need to bring that back into the equation. And we need to win in all those deals that come through. That's another one. And the third place I think I would focus on for economic development is in the life sciences. We don't think of Maine as a life science place, but we've gone from 5,000 to 10,000 jobs in the state in the life sciences, which is where my company is in. That's what I know well. These jobs pay over $100,000 a year on average. They're good paying jobs. They'll be good taxpayers for the future, although we need to lower the tax rate for them over time to keep and grow them here. I'm also noticing we have strong entrepreneurs and talent in this area. A lot of the people that used to live in Boston have decided Maine is a great place to be. And from a policy side, maybe that's not a good thing, but from a talent to build innovative companies, there's some really strong talent out there. And if we can build around them, we could be successful. So I think we need to focus on some areas. We also need to make sure, I talked about AI a couple times, it's in everyone's face now, but it's a major change in how the economy works is what's happening with that. If we don't train our people and we don't train our small businesses and we don't provide opportunities for them to participate in this economy, then they're going to be left behind and we're going to have the chips do to us now what China did to us back in the late 1990s and 2000. On the positive side of that is every state and every place is the exact same moment we are right now. No one's really further ahead, at least on the applied side of things. So we can win in that area. Also, I've been thinking a lot about back to the Arctic, that we could be a center of commerce in the future in Maine. This is a longer play. It's going to take infrastructure to build it with our deep water port in Eastport, with the ways to get goods in and out of there. But given that we'd be close to Asia, and we're on the eastern seaboard, we should imagine ourselves that way and start thinking, well, Maine's not at the end anymore. They're in the center. And a lot of things can open up from there.
How do you plan on making that happen?
Some of these things can be quick wins and other things are built over, 4 to 8 year terms, which luckily that's the length of the governorship. How to make it happen. I think a lot of this has to be done in private-public partnerships. If you rely on the government to just do what I just said, it's not going to work. If you look at an example that is successful out there, Indiana set up a separate corporation to do economic development. They found the best people in Indiana and put it, the business leaders out there that cared about the state, they put it on it. They funded it with creative revenue streams for them with liquor tax. And they got $1 billion into it. And they gave some guidance on what it should be, like for high-paying tech jobs, like a bunch of things, but let them set the strategy and act on it. And what that did is it made it so it lived on past administrations, and you set up a high-growth engine for the future. And for me, I know we have a lot of entities, but we need to have a heavyweight one in each of those areas, and that's probably together in the life science, in the maritime innovation, and in advanced forest projects that have the heavy hitters involved, that has the funding behind it, We got to look at creative sources for the funding that can go and set the strategy and then go and recruit and do it from there. We need to get specific with how we think about building infrastructure for those areas. I've got a creative idea about, and this is going to sound a little wild, but there's a change that's happened with digital assets and crypto right now. And there's a way to take a maritime industrial site and what they say, tokenize it, which is basically like offer it to the crowd that has crypto to own a part of it, where you can get a bunch of capital in, say hundreds of millions to build it. And then from there, you can then use it as a way to attract businesses in. And I say that as an example that might not work exactly like that, but with the change in the world that's happening with also in the crypto space, there's a lot of capital that could flow into a place like Maine if we show that we're innovative on the other side that can fund the build out of this. And then finally, I've been studying places like Tennessee. Tennessee, if you want to come in and you want to set up your business in Tennessee, the governor will call you on your way when you show up, which I would intend to do. It would be out there. If you have a question about electricity, the Tennessee Valley Authority executive director will be on the line immediately. It's a customer service like sales process versus in Maine right now, you go to this website for this and you go to this for this, and maybe you can come back here. And so we need to change that mindset. So it's public-private partnership that's well-funded, hold the strategy, change the mindset, get people that are heavyweights in those industries that are involved, tell that narrative and market it across the country. And then you still need to do the block and tackling on the basics because that's sort of the foundation for everything.
You are listening to Q Point Podcast. I'm Karina Quirk, co-hosting with my husband, David Quirk, and we are having a conversation with Republican gubernatorial candidate Owen McCarthy.
Obviously, the state of Maine needs these innovations because what we're doing right now isn't working. What other plans do you have?
There's a few other things I've been thinking about, and I agree. Like the direction we're heading has been a downward spiral for at least the last 7 years. We're going to be average at best going forward if we don't think differently about how we do this. Another area that's a hot topic that's growing is in the AI data centers. And on the first glance, there's some pros and cons for Maine, and I think there's a way to put a couple deals together that could be really good for Maine. The cons, if someone comes out the gate, they're going to say, well, your energy is too expensive because the AI data centers are like 60, 70% energy costs. Is it available or not is another con. And does it really benefit my communities or is there enough jobs here? On the pro side, we have low temperatures here. So the AI data centers, the cooling is the electricity. So actually electricity use will be lower than a lot of other places. And I do think there's a way to put together deals for these AI data centers, which there's one going in Loring I've got to learn a lot more about. But we can go pre-buy extra electricity for our grid at lower cost because you'd have a customer that needs a lot of it. You could go to the customers. The AI, people building AI data centers are like Facebook and Google and Amazon. They have a lot of cash. And what they're doing is if the runway in and around the electricity grid isn't good enough coming to the data center, they'll pay to upgrade it. So you basically get upgrades for everyone in that area. And given Maine's the most power outages, as we know, the last time I tried to come here, the power went out, the most power outages in the country, that would be a positive benefit. They'd invest in the area. You get the people to build it that's there. And then we get, could be 20 to 25 million in property tax. And they're actually stop asking for tax relief. A lot of these companies have because they want to show that there's a benefit for the town. So $25 million in, and then small amount of jobs, but you've upgraded your grid. You brought lower cost electricity in, you've gotten property taxes, and it's a win if you do it right. If you do it wrong, you don't get that first part where you get new electricity in. Then you might make the whole system strapped with electricity and unreliable, etc. So they're really good if done well, and they could be bad if not done well. The other thing you could do with these, I think, which would be helpful on our energy side, is a number of them are considering, and I'm very pro small modular nuclear, and nuclear, by the way, that's an innovation we need to bring back because it's one of the only way Maine has energy independence and the low cost. We need to enable them to be able to build their own generation sources. Many of these places, if you give them the permitting clear, will fund a build out of a nuclear or other things. And then they will sell it back to the grid if you need it. And so that's another thing that you can do. So to me, I know these are complicated deals, but they're ones that we shouldn't just reject because electricity isn't reliable here. If done well, they can have a lot of positive benefits on Maine. We need to take advantage of those type of things. I actually heard the other day, people will know what this is, but there's a pipeline that goes from Portland to Montreal. And it's an oil pipeline, but it's out of commission. And there was a concept that someone pitched about what if we use that to run the Ethernet connectivity you need for AI data centers and power from Quebec and other places into Maine, and built a data center along those lines, you can connect to the transcontinental internet out of Boston, right in the harbor coming out of Portland. And it could be a great way to get lower cost power in the state. These are examples of, for me, with my company, I've raised $60 million in venture capital. I did a $120 million deal with a biotech company, which was complex. I like these big, complex deals that, if done really well, could be transformational. But it's more than just like a soundbite. They take a lot of creativity, they take a lot of thought, they take the right people, and they take you working hard with the other parties to find a win-win. And those are the type of things that I just get excited about, imagining the future and going through all the obstacles to pull through.
But if we don't do it, some other state's going to do it.
Oh, 100%. The AI data centers, this is one of the fastest growing areas in the economy right now. There is, maybe it's exaggeration, but it could be trillions of dollars that go, like it's a big number. It's merging with energy right now. People are building nuclear alongside it. And it is the rate limiter for AI right now. And that's the battlefield of the future that we need to win as Maine, and as the United States, we need to win in the world. And if we don't build them fast enough, we're going to be behind China. So they're going to get built somewhere. We might as well have some here.
So we have one on the way in Loring. How many do you anticipate we would need, or should we have?
Well, it's an interesting question, like we would need. We technically don't need any, but there are opportunities for prosperity if we've done well. To me, it's, can we find enough power to bring in and make a benefit into the grid? And as many of those as we can make the case for, whether it be hydro from Quebec or Newfoundland's building a new line and they're going to bring it right over northern Maine, and we should see if we can bring in some of that energy, or nuclear energy that we're building ourselves, or New Brunswick's building nuclear energy right now. Whatever we can do to bring more power into Maine at lower costs, that's where I think the rate limiter is, because we technically don't need any, but we're just going to miss out on the opportunity. And in Maine, we've historically been really good at being self-sufficient and working with what we have and fiercely independent. And I love that characteristic about Maine. We haven't always taken a big swing to do something that could be transformational, because maybe it's in the ethos, maybe it's haven't come together, but there's a certain places where you need to make big bets, because that's the only way you get into this prosperity loop that we need to be in.
Will this be a benefit for rural Maine?
I think there's a possibility on the AI data centers that you can move them into rural Maine. Some of the things I've talked about, like maritime innovation, if you do it down east, advanced forest products can make an impact there. But if you want to broaden it out and say, how do we jumpstart an engine of opportunity in the most rural areas? To me, it all comes down to the starting place for any of these things is twofold. One is talent. Talent can be homegrown, and I know that there is talent in every one of these communities. I came from Patton, and I know they're out there. We just need to train them in things like entrepreneurship and AI, which they can then go on and build their own thing, and they might build something that they can take and hire people in their communities, and that becomes something you can build around. You also need to make sure that you can imagine attracting remote workers there, right? We've had a wave of those during COVID. Some of those have receded afterwards. And I've talked to a number of people about this. And actually, it was a funny conversation. I was talking to a guy in Calais, and he was giving me a hard time. He's like, Owen, why didn't you move back to Patton? Why do you live in Gorham, Maine? And I was like, look, for my job, I need to be near an airport so I can get out to the market. I want to be in Maine. We're building it for Maine, but sometimes I need to be in Houston. And he said, exactly. He's like, in Calais right now, if people lived here and they were remote, they then needed to drive to Bangor for 2 hours and then fly to an airport to fly to an airport. And he said, if you can find a way, and there's actually a movement right now called micromobility, which is smaller planes that go from point to point. If you can find a way to get from Calais down to Boston and then Boston to the world, it now becomes an attractive place for people to live beyond all the other benefits of being in Washington County. Like now I can live and work remotely. So it got me thinking about, okay, half of the job is how do we get goods out to market, center of commerce, like I was talking about. The other half is how do we make it a place where people can see themselves living? And so one of them is micromobility. Some of the ones we've already talked about, education system needs to be good. They need to get access to healthcare. They need to also be able to have community gathering spots that they go to, right? Like if you're working at home all day, you want to go see people. And one project I've been helping out with in Patton, Maine a little bit is they're taking the old library, they're making it a community center, and they're putting space in for remote workers when they're there and coming to town. That might seem simple, but if you can get 20 people that make 100 to 150,000 into some of these rural communities, spending their money there and working, and then imagining what can happen, you're going to start to have an engine of economic development. So it's train the talent, attract the talent, and then build around your strengths. A perfect example is our Katahdin folks in Millinocket who said, okay, obviously the mill's gone, what do we do? And they built around the region. They imagined what it could be. They put together a package. They've got a lot of funding in to redevelop it. And now one of the fish farms are going to move up there. The one that gets shut down in Belfast. They're moving to Millinocket. They're going to build it. They're going to grow fish there. And they have a few other projects. So it's build on your strengths in the region, attract and grow the talent are what happens in those areas.
You are listening to Q Point Podcast. I'm Karina Quirk, co-hosting with my husband, David Quirk, and we are having a conversation with Republican gubernatorial candidate Owen McCarthy. There are several credible candidates in this race, as you know. What single policy or strategic quality most differentiates you from the field?
Well, thanks for the question. For me, I come into this race, I'm a political outsider. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a new face to a lot of people, but I'm also an insider to Maine. I know it really well. I can talk to anyone about software or sawmills. I've worked in our heritage industries. I've worked in the future. I'm one of the only candidates, if not the only candidate, that can lead us there. I don't have a famous last name. I've not been a politician before. And if someone wants that, then that's probably not the case. But if they want someone, I think I'm the only candidate with any roots north of Augusta. They want someone with rural roots that cares deeply about the state and wants to make an opportunity for the next generation and focus on affordability, then they should give me a good hard look.
So on the campaign trail, do you take Holly and your kids out?
Yeah, so Holly's my wife and Oliver and Theodore are the kids. They're 5 and 2. And this summer we spent a lot of time at parades and fairs. And I will report back that Oliver and Theodore love the parades. They like to hand out candy. They like the fairs, even though inflation has happened at fairs also with all the games. That's been a hit and they've had a blast and they've really enjoyed it. Holly, at first glance, when I was like, hey, it's a longer conversation than this, but I'm thinking about running for governor. And she's like, you want to run at a hurricane? Like, why do you want to do that? It's pretty wild out there. I'm like, well, Holly, if you get in the center of the hurricane, you're probably in good shape. But she's been a great sport. You know, there's a range of how someone can be involved in the campaign. And I expected her to be less involved to start with. And as it's gone on, she wants to do more things. She wants to get involved. She wants to go on events. She wants to meet people. So that has been a really positive development. She's been supportive regardless. Sometimes she's been like, oh, and why didn't you tell me about this? I would have wanted to go to this. I'm like, well, Holly, I wanted to let you do your thing. She's been really supportive and she's great. Holly's originally from Dixfield. She's from Western Maine. And she's the only one in the family that's won a state championship for basketball. If I had another profession and was athletic, I would have wanted to be a basketball player. So Holly reminds me all the time that she's won 2 state championships with the Deergo Cougars and the Katahdin Cougars didn't win any. So she's been really supportive along the way.
Before we let you go, what would you like to say to the voters of Maine?
What I would like to say to the voters of Maine is I feel like the leadership in Maine has been stuck in the 20th century and that we keep thinking about solutions from the past, from the 1960s to solve our problems and say, well, just give it a little more money and give it a little more time and it's going to work. And it's not going to work. And for me, I want to look forward. I am not afraid to talk about the hard facts, and we should address the hard facts, like our electricity costs are 3rd in the country, property tax is some of the highest, schools test scores are low, and the list goes on. But I do believe we have a brighter future in front of us if we address those and we think about creating opportunity, making it affordable for you to live here, and Augusta spending reasonably. I want to make sure that we make this place more than vacation land for the wealthy. I want the people of Maine to live and prosper and work here. And I want to make sure that you can do that no matter where you grew up. That's the candidacy I'm running, and I would love for you to get behind.
Speaking of getting behind, what is the best way they can reach out to your campaign?
People, if they want to learn more about the campaign, can go to www.owenformaine.com. They can also find us on Facebook or Instagram or TikTok now, or basically anywhere online, and direct message the team and they'll follow up. OwenForMaine.com, sign up if you want to volunteer, donate if you're excited about the movement, or find us on any social media that exists.
Republican gubernatorial candidate Owen McCarthy, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure.
Oh, this has been a lot of fun. Look forward to hearing the final cut.
Thank you for coming in. We appreciate it.
You've been listening to Q Point.
Follow us at qpointpodcast.com or on your favorite streaming app.
This is where you can get the news from the people who make the news.
Make sure to join us next time.
We hope you tune in.
Q Point Podcast invites guests and candidates from all parties to join the conversation. The views, information, opinions, and comments expressed during this program do not necessarily represent those of the host, Q Point Podcast, associates, affiliates, and CQRE LLC.
Thanks for being a part of the conversation. The most important voices aren't always the loudest ones. They're the voices of everyday people, raising families, running businesses, serving their towns. That's who we want to hear from. Share your ideas with us online, and let's make sure those voices are never left out. Find us on Facebook or on X or at qpointpodcast.com. We look forward to hearing from you. Catch every episode at qpointpodcast.com or wherever you stream. Tune in and tell your friends.